Well, it is a somewhat sunny day here, a little bit of overcast, but the sun is breaking through. How are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm feeling good, feeling good, feeling like the sun is kind of breaking through me, you know? It's like sometimes our personalities get in the way of spirit, and I think we can kind of get to a point where all of a sudden our personalities are used by spirit. So I kind of like that idea. It's been bubbling in my head the last few days.
Well, fodder for a blog or some sort of a share with uh, all of the different groups around the community here built around A Course in Miracles. So we'll be looking forward to that one. And it does seem like, it's the days are growing a little bit longer every day and the light is increasing. And so I think perhaps for those of us who are working with the Course, it's very affirming now. And of course, we're moving toward Easter, which is a big event in A Course in Miracles, not because of the death, doom, and destruction, but because of the resurrection.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously, there's a metaphor around the resurrection, that we're really, our spirit is what is resurrecting. So, um, I think that we start to get that's what this is all pointing us towards, is that there's a way that we can resurrect the light that's within us. We can resurrect the truth that's always been there, and we can let that shine. And I think, whether you believe in the Easter Bunny or not, you can see that and kind of use these ideas to, just to kind of come into that joyful sense of the season.
Yes, and this particular season, there is a new movie out dealing with the resurrection, where they're turning it into a mystery kind of adventure thing, where it's all about where's the body. And that was a source of torment for the Roman Empire because they couldn't produce the body after the fact. And in that era, it was very easy to, track down a body. They didn't have wood chipping machines to pulverize something and get rid of it. So, at any rate, I'm looking forward to catching this movie sometime in the next week or two here as we advance toward that period of resurrection and the restoration of light.
Yeah, well, and that fits right in with our section of the manual that we're looking at today, which is a continuation from last week. Number 22, how are healing and atonement related? And I think it kind of jumps right into paragraph 4. It says, certainly sickness does not appear to be a decision, nor would anyone actually believe he wants to be sick. Perhaps he can accept the idea in theory, but it is rarely, if ever, consistently applied to all specific forms of sickness, both in the individual's perception of himself and of all others as well. Nor is it at this level that the teacher of God calls forth the miracle of healing. He overlooks the mind and body, seeing only the face of Christ shining in front of him, correcting all mistakes and healing all perception. Healing is the result of the recognition by God's teacher of who it is that is in need of healing. So I think this fits right in with this idea of resurrection, because the way that it was possible for Jesus's body to resurrect from the tomb and to come back in form was because Jesus knew the body was not what he was. Jesus knew that the body didn't have any power over him, that the body was an effect of the mind. And because he had reached the atonement, he had cleared his mind of all of the sin and guilt that was in his little shard of seeming individuality. He only had love left in his mind. And then his body was used as just a vehicle for love. And that is really the reason and the purpose of the resurrection, was to show that there was nothing to fear and that death is not real. All of these things that we are so afraid of ultimately are causeless, ultimately are illusions, as this section is saying.
That is true. And one of the things that I like about this whole section is that it reinforces the idea that the atonement is a overall template to be used in everything. You know, as we look down into that second paragraph, it says, the progress of the teacher of God may be slow or rapid, depending on whether he recognizes the atonement's inclusiveness, or for a time excludes some problem areas from it. So here we are being definitely put on point about there being one fix for everything, the universal fix for everything, which is the atonement. And that was the fix for Jesus and his resurrecting the body, so that there could be witnesses who actually experienced that, touching and feeling and the visceral aspect of him bringing the body back. But then we're told later on that as he went forth into the ascension, he stepped into a light that was brighter than any light that was imaginable or could be envisioned by we mortals. So that, basically this gives us the one absolute answer to every problem that we have, and reiterates it beautifully. And all we have to do is just continue to chip away at our resistance to actually having that direct connection with the Holy Spirit and with God.
Yeah, and I think it's that resistance that becomes our work. As we start to get these ideas, they're kind of nice ideas. God is love. You are love. You are one with God. It's like, oh, okay, I like that. Well, we start to then ask the question, well, how come that's not what I'm feeling all the time? How come I'm not feeling that joyfulness, that ease of being? And it's this resistance. It's our identification with our small s self, which is our body, which is our personality, which are these things that seem to say, I am not you. I am other than this other person, other than this other thing. But we are not one. And we start to get that all of these statements of otherness serve one purpose, and that's to keep us away from the love of God. That on a very, very deep level, as the last obstacle to peace in the text says, we are afraid of God. It is the fear of God, the fear of love, that is our deepest sort of issue here. The main reason why we don't just jump back into the arms of love. So why would we be afraid of love? Well, because we made up a story, and we're very attached to this story that somehow God is angry and punishing, and he's going to come for us. And it doesn't really make sense. As I'm saying it, you might say, well, I don't really believe that. But if you don't believe that 100%, then you are feeling this love and this joy. So if you are not feeling this love and this joy all the time, what that's telling you is that there is some part of you that identifies with this, and that this becomes your goal to bring this part of yourself forward, to see it in the light of truth, and then to come to see there's nothing to it. And that is the forgiveness shift that we're all moving towards, that we're all asking for, so that we can experience this peace that is always in us.
That is true. And it's interesting how many areas in the Bible and in the Quran and a lot of other so-called spiritual texts really is very inflamed around that idea of a punitive God. we go back and look at Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, my God. The old vision of God takes out an entire city, wipes out and decimates hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And that's a terrifying image. It's very hard once we have had that kind of rhetoric swirling around in our head to just discount it entirely. So we have to work in small increments to try and resolve that fundamental fear that exists in every person that I've ever met anyway. And take baby steps back to the atonement, back to that union with divinity. So it's really not, it's not a thing where you can like storm the gates of heaven. It's not a thing where you have to get out there and do this in the next 48 hours or you're lost forever. But once we're able to just be comfortable with our pace and to continue to persevere, we begin to see all these things turn out really nicely in our life. Whereas before we were constantly doing damage control and having to scale cliffs and leap across canyons and caverns. And, the spirit that is within us, that Holy Spirit, does help in that the journey becomes much more easy as we continue to progress.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point that the perspective of our journey, the perspective of the path that really we're traversing here, can look one of two ways. And the fearful vision of it is that, oh my God, I have so much I need to heal, so much I need to forgive. I'm never really going to make it to the end. It's just too much. Maybe other people can make it through their stuff, but mine is especially bad, and I'm never gonna get it all healed. And then there's the loving perspective, which says, as that section in the course is called, that it's a journey without distance. That you don't really have anywhere to go because you've already achieved what you are. You can't not be what you are, and you are love, you are peace, you are joy. So yeah, there are some shadows that seem to be coming between that and your awareness of it, but they're just mere wisps of nothingness. Now, when we're in those wisps of nothingness, it can feel terrifying. They can feel like formidable, and they can feel like too much. So we can kind of even use that to see what thought system we're choosing right now. If we're in the fear, if we're in this hopeless feeling, then obviously we're choosing to hold the ego's hand. And when we make that shift, we're kind of like, oh, and what was I worried about? What was the big deal?
Yes, it does take the sting out of our experience here in the material world. And that's the beauty of, commitment to the course, is that you do actually get that gratification, and it does amp up, it does increase as you continue to do the work. So basically, looking at healing and the atonement, recognizing their oneness, and then being willing to allow the atonement to become an experience in your life is what this whole thing is all about. And that really is a synopsis of A Course in Miracles from top to bottom. But we've built up so much defense against actually experiencing that it becomes a lifelong journey for most of us.
Yeah. And in this section, Jesus is kind of reassuring. There's a nice part here. He says, the offer of atonement is universal. It is equally applicable to all individuals in all circumstances. And in it is the power to heal all individuals of all forms and sicknesses. Not to believe this is to be unfair to God and thus unfaithful to him. A sick person perceives himself as separate from God. Would you see him as separate from you? It is your task to heal the sense of separation that has made him sick. It is your function to recognize for him that what he believes about himself is not the truth. It is your forgiveness that must show him this. Healing is very simple. Atonement is received and offered. Having been received, it must be accepted. So it still looks to us like we have more hurdles to overcome and we've got more obstacles that we need to shift in order to find that peace. But he's saying here that that is actually already complete. Even if we haven't caught up to it in our awareness yet, that our acceptance of the atonement, our realization of our oneness is not in question. The only question might be a matter of when, how many right-minded choices are we going to make, or are we going to delay our experience of that peace a little longer? But in the end, we can't help but choose it because the choice is already done.
Exactly. And, one of the things that we, along the journey, can come to the recognition of is that it's not just confined to human experience, but that in truth, all life, every reflection of life is included in the atonement. So, for people who are experiencing the loss of a pet or, the loss of a house plant or whatever it is, wherever death has appeared to be real around you, recognize that that life that was in that object in reality was never disturbed, and it never lost its continuity of being life. So that's the beauty of the way this works, is it is inclusive from, the blade of grass right up to the crown of creation. And none of the things you think you have lost are in fact gone. They just are hidden from your view until you awaken to the degree where you can recognize them.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
It feels like maybe a good place to kind of wrap it up for today. So, yeah, this has been really fun. And thanks to those of you who came out to our last in-person event this last Sunday. Chris and I both had a lot of fun sharing about the course with you guys. And yeah, we're planning the next one right now. So stay tuned to this channel for updates on that.
Yes, and get out there and embrace the light. As you can see, I'm kind of fading into the light, so I'm becoming less and less corporeal here as we progress. Anyway, you have a great week, Barrett, and I'll talk to you in 7 days.
All right, sounds good, Chris. You have a good one too.
Okay, bye.